if I never go back to my profession, am I worthy still?
We find our value and our worth in the things that we do.
Not allowing illness or stress, or when you're unable to function, you're booked off work. Now you've been forced by life to pause.
When it's all said and done, what does success mean? My good doctor.
Spiso.
How are you? Let's start there before we can go far. How are you?
I'm doing great. The year feels like it's like in full swing.
Come on now.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Come on
I'm
now.
doing good. I'm doing great.
I love it. I love it. Tell me a bit about Dr. Samke. I was telling you just before we started going on live on air, as people say, that, I listened to a conversation that you had recently and I was like, man, we need to talk to this powerhouse of a woman. And you were just so vulnerable. And it's so important because, like I said to you, we just don't have enough of these vulnerable conversations.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, who is Dr. Samke?
Samke Ngcobo is a born and bred individual, born in Durban.
Love it.
I moved to Johannesburg over 10 years ago. So I'm now a citizen, a fully bred
Come
citizen
on
of Johannesburg. But I come from a Christian home and strict background.
Yeah.
And where order and discipline was also the order of the day, in a loving environment.
Sounds like most black homes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sounds about right,
yes,
yeah.
I'm somebody who just values authenticity and connection and relationship.
Come on.
And I've come to realize that success is not only about monetary things, but it's about building relationships and lasting ones. So I just value a good conversation and I'm glad to be here.
You know what I love so much about that answer?
I
asked you, who is Dr. Samke? No. And I did not hear anything about her. She's a medical doctor. No. We spoke about authenticity, connections, relationships. That's power. That's power. Why are those things so important to you?
I think my journey has taught me to realize that when all is said and done and when everything is taken away, the titles are important in terms of career progression.
Yeah.
But the essence of somebody is not about their title. So when somebody asks me, who am I? What comes first is not about the title and the work and what I may be known for. But I always make it a point to make it clear that that's part of who I am, but it's not the essence of who I am.
I think your story is a very beautiful story. You're a medical doctor and you are also outspoken about the fact that you are formally diagnosed with bipolar.
Yes.
Before we even go anywhere, guys, can we talk about that for 2 seconds? Number one, I think that's amazing. Here we have this black woman who's a beacon of light and she's done so well, become this medical doctor, but it hasn't been without challenges.
Absolutely.
And I guess there's 2 questions here. The one is, at what point did you decide that you wanted to become more vocal about mental health? And why did that become so important for you?
It was a very clear-cut point in my life. So I was diagnosed with mental illness when I was 14 years old. So a very long time ago, navigating this journey called mental illness. Not always well managed, I would say, but the point at which I decided to be more open, where it doesn't become this closely kept secret between friends and family, it was in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's quite recent. Recent.
Yeah.
And I had a public bipolar episode. And that was life-changing. My life changed for good. Painfully so at the time. But connecting the dots, I think it was part of God's purpose for my life. At that point, I had an episode whereby it was witnessed. People listened to voice notes I had left in a state of being unwell. So I had been very stressed prior to that point. It snowballed quite badly. And I ended up being admitted in a state facility and as an involuntary mental health care user. And when I was there, I realized that people with mental illness, I've been the privileged few who gets the quality medical care. Up until that point, I didn't know any better, even though I had managed people in mental health care facilities in state because I was working in the Department of Psychiatry. But to be on the other end, the receiving end of the care and the quality at which I experienced, I realized that there's a bigger picture here. And I became resolute while I was there that I want to have more impact. I want to have more meaning in terms of the work that I do. My relapse was so severe that I needed rehabilitation in terms of my brain functioning because it wasn't an obvious thing that I'd be able to return to the work that I do. And I was booked off work for 6 months on incapacity leave. And I used to judge people who are away from work for more than a week. I'm like, why?
Like, oh, what are you doing with your life?
What are you doing with your life? What is the reason? You know, I was always that person that comes, if I'm coughing, I take cough mixture, I go to work.
Yeah.
So,
We keep it moving.
we keep it moving. You have to keep it moving. All of a sudden, my doctor breaks the news to me and says, Samke, I need to book you off work for 6 months. And I thought, what do I do with my life? What does that mean? Who am I? And that's when the who am I questions came in, because in our professions, imagine having to pause doing your work for 6 months. Who are you during that time? You because we're always working Monday to Friday, preparing for, work and doing this.
Yeah.
Everything works around our careers.
Yeah.
So I had to reckon with myself for the first time fully to say, if I never go back to my profession, am I worthy still? What is my identity? And that is when I had those questions, the self-reflections. And during that time, lots of crying, lots of reflections. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and say, did this just happen to me? What does this mean for me? And I feel that I met myself in a different way when I had that time away. And I felt it in my heart that I want to be more of an active citizen of the world, of my country, of my society, and share in my journey. It was a risk to say, will it be embraced? Will it not be embraced? But the cause became bigger than the fear. And I decided to use my journey to impact the lives of other people. People think I've been doing this for a decade or so. But I guess it's because of the level of impact that it's had. And to give a face and a name to mental illness, to say it's not the man on the street only, but it can be a professional, a highly functioning professional, a fully capable professional. And I haven't looked back, and I'm so grateful. And, that's when I wrote my book. Yeah. That's when I decided to speak more about it. And that's when an interest developed for people around, different media houses became interested to hear my story because of the fact that they are seeing hope, I believe, to say, here's somebody who has a medical profession. It has not been easy. I'm open about the fact that it has not been easy navigating this journey, but you can live a full life with mental illness. It doesn't have to define you. And I always say that I'm not suffering from mental illness. I'm thriving despite it.
So much power. So much power. You said something and I love it. You said that period, the 6-month period, and you're confronted with the question of not only who I am, but you then were confronted with the question that says, what is my worth?
Yes.
And I think a lot of us, Doc, we find our value and our worth in the things that we do.
Absolutely.
It's related to vocation or trade or the qualifications, the positions. It's the things we do. But who are you? And am I worthy? Ooh, you said, am I worthy?
Yes.
What are some things that you think we not only should be doing, or rather we can do and we should do to really grapple with that question as people?
I think we need to pause more often than we do now. We're always on a rat race. I'm sure people already on a Sunday are packing their lunch boxes, planning the week ahead, gym and this and that. but to pause, being one with our thoughts, to reflect about, am I okay?
Yeah.
Am I stressed?
Yeah.
I feel that we're always moving on to the next thing. We achieve something, we're moving on to the next thing. And I think just pausing to say, am I well? Am I fine? Not allowing illness or stress, or when you're unable to function, you're booked off work. Now you've been forced by life to pause. Let us not wait for life to make us pause, but let us teach ourselves to pause. It could be for 10 minutes. It could be for 30 minutes. It could be parking your car because maybe you know that when you get in the house, there's a lot of movement and busyness that has to take place.
Yeah.
But just to say, how was my day? Reflecting. Not everybody journals, but in that time of silence to reflect more. I think people could benefit a lot more from doing that, because even in sometimes exercising, people are already thinking about the next thing they have to do in their workplaces. So I think giving ourselves an opportunity to connect with ourselves more, I think we could go a very long way.
You're saying a lot of things that I love today, Doug. You're saying a lot of things that I love. You said pause, because if you don't stop, sometimes life will cause you to stop.
Absolutely.
And if you don't take the time to pause, sit back, reflect, sometimes life will call you to do so.
Life will compel you to do so.
What is, for somebody who grassroots first principles language, fundamental language, somebody who doesn't know, how would you describe mental health or mental illness?
So I'll start with mental health.
Sure.
Mental health is what we all have.
I like that. And I like that because these things are different.
Yes.
Right? I like that.
Yes. So I'm going to explain them in elemental phase, in nuggets,
Yeah.
So mental health is what we all have.
Sure.
But in varying degrees.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's people who have good mental health and there's people who struggle in their mental health. Sure. But we all have it at some level. So oftentimes people think that mental illness or mental health is something that's for certain people, or the topic of mental health is for a select few, or it's rich people problems, or it's nice life problems that lead you to attend to your mental well-being. But all of us in some capacity struggle with our mental well-being. We might not have a diagnosis.
I like that. Of
mental illness.
I like that. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of our mental well-being.
I really like that. Yeah.
So our mental health is related to the state of our well-being. So holistically, and it's a human right.
Sure.
You know, and as the saying goes, Dr. Brock Chisholm says, there is no mental health. There's no health without mental health. So you could be thriving in other spaces of your life, but if your mental well-being is not attended to, that is not being holistically well.
Yeah.
Mental illness is when you have a diagnosis, diagnosed by a professional. Sometimes people aren't diagnosed, and I discourage self-diagnosis. Sometimes people will say, I've had depression all my life, but then you ask, do you have you been diagnosed? But they've just read it sometimes on Google.
Yeah.
You wouldn't diagnose yourself with a fracture.
Yeah.
You would go to an orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
So mental illness is when you have a diagnosis. So you are now struggling in different areas of your life.
Okay.
So socially, occupationally, so different areas of your life, the different domains of your life need to thrive. That's when you are well.
Gotcha.
But if now you're unable to function at work anymore, a task that used to take you an hour is now taking you 3 hours, you need to have a high index of suspicion to say, what is going on with me? So when the different domains of your life are now affected, you need to pay attention and seek the right support. Yeah. So mental health and mental illness are often used interchangeably, but they're not identical terms.
I'm with you. Yeah. And so that's mental health. And what I love about it is that you said it's holistic. And indeed, in my view, success is not success unless it is holistic, right?
Yes.
So it's mental health. And then we spoke about mental illness. And I want us to zoom in a little bit on the specific conversation of bipolar for 2 seconds. Yes. Can we talk a little bit about what bipolar is? And then what are some of you spoke about when you had a public incident with regards to your bipolar? What are some of the triggers? How do we know that we're probably going to run into a problem? What are some things that we can be aware of to begin to pick up on some of these things and then say, oh, okay, I probably now need to pause, like we said.
So bipolar disorder is a type of mental illness. There's your schizophrenia, depression. So it exists in a spectrum. So in the past, it used to just be seen as a mood disorder only, so to speak. So it would fall in the category of, the family of depression, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make it simple so that it doesn't become too confusing for the sake of the listeners.
Yeah.
So look at it as two poles. There's the very high highs where you're having a manic episode and the lows where you have severe depressive symptoms. So it's extremes of mood, basically. And you have mania, and the goal is to be in a space of euthymia. Euthymia is when things are in equilibrium, as I am right now.
Love it.
So you don't want us to deviate beyond that level high up or below. You want to remain in a space of euthymia. Like so I have symptoms whereby I could fluctuate depending on that episode. I could either have severe lows or severe highs.
Yeah.
And struggling to sleep, pacing around, irritability, severe irritability. There's different symptom clusters that would indicate that I'm having a certain episode.
Yeah.
And there's the depressive episodes as well.
Yeah.
So you asked, what are the triggers? So in the past, I would just find myself in hospital because I wasn't having that level of awareness.
Yeah.
I've evolved over the time where I'm able to pick up to say, I'm not sleeping enough. My mood is feeling lower than normal. There's irritability. And the other thing is the people around me, my family, and will have a high index of suspicion. They'll notice certain behaviors rather. Yeah. They'll say, but you're awake later than normal now.
Yeah.
Or you're sleeping more than normal.
Yeah.
They will let me know. And I've become more embracing to that feedback. In the past, I used to be defensive. I didn't want to hear what people have to say to me. Also, that irritability is not just, something is a bit annoying right now. It's just marked. It stands out. So there's different symptoms and that show that I'm having a bipolar episode. When I say it exists in a spectrum, in the past, it used to just be seen as a plain mood disorder.
Sure.
But for the sake of people understanding it easily, I'll just put it in that category.
The medicine journey was not an easy journey. What was some of the hardest things that you've wrestled with on that journey towards becoming a medical doctor, whilst having to deal with and navigate the terrain of mental health and mental illness? And what did you learn most from it?
The most difficult thing was the confusion. I was not understood. I did not understand myself, but people did not understand why I was not accepting this journey. I struggled with being confused of, okay, I'm told I have this diagnosis, but what does it mean for me? What does it mean about my future? What does it mean about my capabilities? I did not like the medication for the fact that I had side effects that weren't explained to me. As an example, I gained 30 kilograms in the space of 4 months.
Wow.
And no one wanted to understand why I did not want to take this medication. So things were not being explained to me. I was expected to comply. So I was very frustrated. I was very resentful. Then there was the loneliness, because if I'm booked from school for 2 weeks, then I have to return. Your friends are moving forward. We're young. They don't understand what's going on with me. And it became a very lonely place. I did not finish in record time. It's not written on my forehead now, but the self-esteem issues that resulted at that time. But I struggled with that.
Yeah.
My friends graduated before me because I was navigating this journey alone as well, to some extent. So there were so many things that came to play that I did not anticipate. I mean, you may struggle with some academic things from here and there, assessments can be difficult, but I'd never fallen behind in terms of not achieving at the same rate, finishing in record time. We always talk about this elusive record time. And I speak a lot at schools as well to, encourage people to say, here I am, very capable, high achieving, but there was a time when it was not as obvious because of life challenges, and the timing of our conversation to say there's matriculants who are allowing this time to define them, to say they may not have performed the way they wanted to perform. And they make it seem as if it's a defining moment of their life, but it's a chapter of their life.
Come on, Doc, you're preaching. It's not a defining moment in your life. It's a chapter of your life. So tell me something. You said that you obviously worked in the clinical space for some time.
Yes, for most of the
time, yeah. Yes. And now a lot of the work you're actually doing is within the corporate realm.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. Now, we know that there's a lot of mental health, well-being problems in corporate.
Yes.
Are we talking enough about it? Are we doing enough about it? What are the things that you would do different? What do we need to do different? What are the things that we need to change?
I don't think enough is being done. I do think that there's a hunger, and that's a hunger that I believe has been accelerated by COVID-19.
Yes.
When people became more aware that these mental health issues are a reality for people.
Yeah.
People who are diagnosed have had worsening of symptoms. There's people who have not had mental illness, who have developed mental illness. Or even if they don't have a diagnosis, they are struggling with their mental well-being.
Yeah.
So companies have developed an interest. When I started out my company, Vocal Mentality, it chose me. I don't think I chose it.
Come on now.
I was asked to speak to address people because they were seeing this highly functional professional, and I think they found me relatable.
Yeah.
Because they have employees who serve in different various roles, and when you speak mental health and you speak mental illness or mental well-being, they find it to be a topic for another kind of a population, not within a highly functional society.
Oof.
So,
which is a problem.
1.1. Absolutely. And I've been invited by various corporate, either I deliver talks where I speak maybe on one occasion, but other times I speak and then they ask me to be part of their wellness team where I work with the employee assistance programs. And you find that people are struggling more than they even realize, what I've noticed. So they come in with one challenge, or they're curious to know what is this about, only to find that the issues run deeper than what they realize.
Yeah.
So people struggle with work relationships, with their superiors, with their juniors, the workload, work-life balance. At times, many a time, it's personal issues, because to still believe that our challenges must be left at the door and you have to function when you're one person is not reality. It's not realistic. So people are now realizing that you bring your full self to your work environment. And if you're not well, or your home life is not doing well, you won't be functioning optimally at the work environment. So more can be done. More psychoeducation needs to take place to know that the EAP service is not when there's a crisis. Let us not think crisis when we talk mental health. It's not about crisis intervention.
Yeah.
It's about looking after yourself. People go to the gym and they realize the importance of going to the gym.
Yeah.
So let us take it as, yes.
Yeah,
so
not
let us take
point of crisis.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let us take it in that way to make it a part of our lifestyle to attend to our mental well-being.
And so let's talk about that for 2 seconds, Doc. What's some of the advice that you would give to professionals? We call them, what do we say? High-performing individuals. Like, what are some of the advice that you would give to these sorts of people when it comes to the conversation of proactively being engaged in the conversation of your mental health, your mental well-being, and just holistic well-being?
I would really like to encourage people who are high-performance individuals, because at times certain aspects of your life suffer. because of this high performance and delivering what you have to deliver.
Yeah.
I really would like for us to destigmatize seeking support from mental health care services, to realize that seeing a psychologist is not for when there's a death in the family or when there's a struggle. To make it, invest in it. If you can afford it, not only if you can afford it, there's other services available in the workplace that aren't, where you don't even have to pay. To give it a chance. Yeah. Give it a chance. Give your mind an opportunity to flourish optimally than to only attend to it when there's a crisis. That would be my advice, to say, as much as you prioritize other areas of your life, make your mind and invest in your mind.
I love it. Invest in all these different things. And I spoke to you, Doc, saying that, really wanted you to come onto the platform because the focus of the Impact podcast and the work that we're doing with the Impact organization is really, the focus is business and leadership.
Yes.
But I think all too often we overlook the imperative conversation of the self. And you're right. You can't separate these two things.
No, you can't.
Who I am in my mental well-being, whatever the case might be, who I am at home, the issues that I'm grappling with, whatever the case might be, I am bringing that stuff to my daily occupation, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And if you are going to show up in the best possible way that you can, then you need to, which is why I love what you said, invest.
Invest in it.
Invest in it.
And not look at it as something that's inferior or a weakness. It's not a weakness to invest in your well-being. To sit across a psychologist does not mean that you are failing in life. You are actually winning because you are seeking the support that you need.
So much power. Doc, so the one side of it is for us to be more aware, play a more proactive role in our journey. Then the other side of it is, what can other people around, what can we around each other, what can we do to be more supportive? Or what are things that we can do to show up for people who we know might be struggling in certain areas, might be struggling with mental health, might be struggling with their mental illness? What can we do as the people in their community to be better and do better for them?
I believe that education is very important.
Ooh, yeah.
It starts there. It starts there. Educating ourselves about mental health, educating ourselves about mental illness, mental wellness, mental well-being. Empathy goes a very long way. So you may not be able to solve the challenges of the person you're working with, or the friend, or at any point. But empathy, compassion goes a very long way. Sometimes people in the work environment are suspicious of each other. Someone is missing work, they're absent more than usual, and you're thinking they are slacking. How about thinking that there could be something wrong with this person? They could be going through a personal challenge. Let us be more observant and not be so closed off in our own personal environments. Let us look around us to say, I've noticed a change in their pattern of behavior. What is this about? To have a greater level of, interest in the people around us. A reality we can't escape is that suicide has become a problem. And one may say, but she was here yesterday. She was perfectly fine. But how do you know the person was perfectly fine if something like this has happened? So it's just having a greater level of interest on the people around us and having a greater level of compassion and empathy, but educating ourselves to say signs of somebody struggling. What could that look like?
Doc, I want to round off our conversation with two questions. And the first is, somebody who is struggling with mental illness finds themselves in a very dark place right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you would know about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say a lot of us would know about that. What would you say to them?
I would say to somebody who's currently struggling with their mental well-being, mental health, and is in a dark place, I would encourage you to seek help. I would encourage you to not have shame about struggling, to know I'm going to shy away from saying you're not alone, because it's not going to solve your issue at this current moment. But I'd encourage you to say, please seek help where possible. So seek help from your loved ones. Don't feel like a burden. I would say seek from the right resources. There's the nonprofit space where there's your SADC, there's psychologists out there. There's always help available in your issue. At times, what can make you feel so isolated is to feel that your problem has no solution that you see, but there's always somebody that can provide a different perspective to you. Yeah. So seek help, seek support.
What is some of the stuff that got you through your darkest
moments? What got me through my darkest moments, I would say, is God.
Talk to me.
God has been a very integral part of my life. Yeah. There's moments where I really thought I could not get out of the situations that I've landed up in mentally. But He'd say a word or bless me with amazing friends, amazing family. I'm truly blessed. And that's what got me out of it.
Yeah.
Was it easy to crawl out of that space? No. But hope, sometimes you even feel hopeless. But it would be a word, it would be an inspiration, it would be a loved one checking up on me that has helped me navigate those parts of the darkness.
And I like the word you used. Crawl.
Yes. Literally.
Sometimes.
Literally.
All you're doing is you are crawling.
You're crawling.
But crawl.
Yes.
But crawl.
Yes.
You know? Like, yeah, it's if that's all you can do, you know, I always say, like, if 40% is all I can give on this day, and I give my 40%, then I've done well. You've done well. And if on another day 100% is what you can give, and you give 100, you've showed up.
Yeah.
But do what you can. Crawl. If crawling is all you can do, then crawl.
And sometimes the achievement is getting out of bed and taking a shower and getting back into bed.
Come on now.
That's it.
Come on now.
Then there's days where you are sitting here and having a great conversation, you know?
Yeah.
So
when life is lifing.
When life is lifing.
All we can do is just take a shower, get back into bed. And that's a win for that day.
For that day.
And another day, something else is a win. But do what you can to the best of your ability when you can, how you can.
Yes.
You know? Crawl.
And in this era of social media where everyone seems to just be winning.
Come on now, let's talk about it.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Everyone seems to be winning and they are, you look there and you think, I can't relate with this because my life is not glossy as what it looks like. It's to know that, okay, you can't control the narrative of somebody else, but to say you're looking at somebody else's, you know, what they are sharing.
Yeah.
You don't know the behind the scenes of what they're going through. So how you engage with yourself is what's the most important thing.
I love it. 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 My last question to you is very simple. When it's all said and done, in your work, the stuff that you're involved in, actively engaged in, when it's all said and done, what does success look like for you?
And it's changed. My perception of success has evolved over time.
Yeah.
But I would look at success as feeling content, whether I feel that I'm making a massive impact or not. So I don't look anymore at the number of people that have reached out to me or I have reached out to. For me, it's feeling content whether those things are there or not. Whether the title Dr. Samke is there or not, if I still feel worthwhile and worthy to myself and to the people that matter most, that's what success looks like. And if you had asked me that some years ago, it would have been a different answer. Do I want the trappings of life? Yes. But without those trappings, do I feel worthwhile and worthy? If my answer is yes, then I think I've succeeded.
You know, Doc, the word that I got from this conversation, because Dr. Samke Ngcobo came here to preach. She was preaching today.
Really?
No, she was preaching today. And the word that I received, above all, I'm really thankful for the insight into the mental health, the mental well-being conversation. And the education part of it. Go out, seek information, guys. Get to know what is mental health. Educate yourselves. Let's talk more about it. Let's create these safe spaces where we're engaging and having the conversations, destigmatizing the conversation around mental health and well-being. Yes. I appreciate that so much. The word that I got was ultimately, when it's all said and done, be very clear on who you are. Know your value. Know that you're worthy. And you kept repeating, with or without.
Yeah.
On the stage, not on the stage. With the book, no book. Money in the bank, checks coming, rolling in, no money. Huge success, great accolades, none of that. Who are you? Mm-hmm. What is this all about? Know your value and know that you're worthy. That's my word. So I thank you, Dr. Samke. First of all, for taking the time. It was a beautiful conversation. So thank you so much for coming and for sharing, for being vulnerable. I appreciate it. And I know that everybody who takes a second out of their day to give this a listen will definitely appreciate it too.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was looking forward to it and it exceeded my expectations.
Thank you, Doc. Take care of yourself, everything that you touch.
Thank you.
I pray that the Lord blesses it, that the Lord adds to it. And I'm wishing you nothing but success. Continue to do the great work that you're doing because we need it. People need it. There's not enough of it happening. It's not enough of it going around. And so we need people like you, Doc, to continue doing the great work that you're doing. Thank you, Doc.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much.